and that's my Miami Heat. I haven't really addressed this, honestly. I've been so locked into football that I haven't had the time to address the nonsense that's going on in South Beach with Jimmy Butler. Okay, this is ridiculous. So he's been suspended 3 times. Okay, we all know this. He is just a distraction. And we're trying to trade him, all this stuff. The Heat's asking price is apparently too high, so that's why we haven't been able to get a deal for him yet. But Pat Riley, you have till February 6th. You have less than a week to get this trade done. And you better get this trade done because we have to get some value for this guy. I don't want him also staying in Miami and then accepting that $52 million player option that he has for next year. And I also think that's probably scaring a couple teams away because imagine you have to take a 35-year-old and pay him $52 million. No one's going to want to do that. There's only a couple teams I think that are realistically going to be in it. Now, Jimmy Butler said he doesn't want to go to the Memphis Grizzlies, which is actually stupid in my opinion, because I think Jimmy Butler could actually compete for a championship on the Memphis Grizzlies. He has way better chance than doing that on the Warriors or the Suns. The Suns and Warriors, get them out of here. They're not really even scary teams. But if Jimmy Butler goes to the Grizzlies, that is where he can really bring his identity fully. He can be Jimmy. They need a player like that. They need a veteran presence. They also need a guy who has playoff experience and can close games. Because I love John Morant, but he's not the greatest shooter in the world. He's not really a closer. He can drive to the basket and do a lot of things, but the Grizzlies are missing that closer. I really believe they could have that in Jimmy Butler if Jimmy Butler would just get out of his head about wanting to go to Phoenix and the Warriors so bad. Because if you go to Phoenix, I mean, you're going to be playing with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, but other than the big 3, they really don't have anybody else on that roster. And Grayson Allen's pretty good, but he's having a down year from his 50, 40, 90 season last year. So, I mean, I think that's kind of tough, in my opinion, for the Suns to even win a championship, even with Jimmy Butler. I don't think that really puts them, I don't really think that moves the needle. And even same with the Warriors. I mean, I don't think they even have enough, even with Jimmy Butler. I don't think they have enough pieces. But the Grizzlies, they're young, they're hungry, they have good depth, they have talent. They have one of the best players in the NBA in John Morant. So I think that is the best place for him to go. But I think the Heat aren't going to trade him. I'm getting this gut feeling that we're not going to trade him. We're going to let this drag along. We're not going to get a deal done because we're stubborn. And Pat Riley's being stubborn right now. This whole thing with Jimmy Butler starts out with him being stubborn. Because, look, this whole thing started when Jimmy Butler didn't play in the Boston Celtics series in the playoffs last year. Pat Riley's like, all right, Jimmy, shut up if you're not on the court. Because Jimmy was saying, well, if I was playing, we would have won the series, which as a biased Heat fan, I firmly believe that. But this whole thing started because Pat Riley would not give Jimmy Butler a contract extension. If you just gave Jimmy Butler the money, this wouldn't have been a conversation. But I don't think Pat Riley wants to pay a 35-year-old. And in my opinion, I don't think Jimmy Butler's worth a 4-year deal or 4-year max. I don't think so. But to me, I feel like the Heat have handled it very badly because Pat Riley said, all right, we are not going to trade Jimmy Butler. Then he said, we're open to trading Jimmy Butler. And then he said, we're not trading Jimmy Butler. And then Jimmy's got that press conference where he said he can't find his joy on the court here. And then Pat Riley's like, okay, we're suspending you for 7 games. What? What? Are you actually serious right now? This is not really happening. And then you suspend, and then you have the 7-game suspension. Jimmy Butler comes back and plays for the sorry Heat that aren't really that good this year. Tyler Hero's been our best player. And by the way, speaking of, you wanted to trade Tyler Hero, Pat Riley, for 3 straight off seasons. But you never traded him. You were indecisive. You kept him around. How do you think Tyler Hero feels about wanting to be traded and then having to come back and play? You did the same thing with Jimmy. And Jimmy says he wants out. So why do you say, oh, Jimmy actually came back and played? And then you suspended him again for 2 more games. Like, I really don't understand. It's because he missed a team flight. Really? You know he doesn't want to be there. And he also even said, hey, I'll meet you guys there. But he doesn't want to play for this team. And the locker room is not in a good place right now because Jimmy is still there. Just don't make him play. Don't make him abide by team rules because he's already not doing it. He walked out of practice because Eric Spoelstra said, I'm going to bench you. Of course he's going to walk out of practice. You're telling him you're going to bench him for what? Because he wants to be traded? Just give the man what he wants. Get him out of here so the Heat can start fresh and start looking towards the future and retooling, because that's exactly what the Heat need to do. We need to get some draft picks. We need to get Jimmy Butler out there because he's old. The rest of our team is rather young, besides Kevin Love. But I think Kevin Love could be in that deal, by the way. But that's another conversation. And then the third suspension, he gets suspended indefinitely for the walking out of practice situation. And Stephen A., he actually initially blamed Pat Riley, but then he blamed Eric Spoelstra for the benching thing. So, I don't really blame, I don't know, because Pat Riley does control a lot when it comes to the Heat. So I'm not sure what to really even buy anymore, but all I know is the Heat need to get rid of him before February 6th, or there's going to be a big problem. There's going to be a big problem because Jimmy did this when he was leaving Minnesota, Chicago. I mean, he's had bad exits at the end of his run. And to be fair, I don't think anyone should really want to trade for Jimmy Butler because, one, in the last 5 years, he hasn't really been that available. I mean, he's only played 60 or more games 2 times in his 5-year stint with the Heat. 2 times. So he hasn't really been available. Now, I know he's playoff Jimmy, but even before that, I heard some guy talking about this on ESPN radio. Before he came to Miami, he was known as a head case. He was a problem. And then the Heat kind of revived his reputation a little bit, and he became playoff Jimmy. If you just get into the playoffs, you got something. So I think that's when people should be like, well, maybe I will trade for him. So, and I think part of the problem is, I feel like we're having a hard time trading Jimmy Butler is because, one, Jimmy Butler wants to be on the Suns. And 2, Bradley Beal has a no-trade clause on his contract, and his contract's huge. So I think that money has to work. So I think we have to get a couple of teams involved. I've heard 5-team trade been thrown in there, 3-team trade. Heck, since De'Aaron Fox is up and available, maybe the Miami Heat should make a deal with the Sacramento Kings. Trade Jimmy Butler for De'Aaron Fox. I know it sounds crazy, but I would love De'Aaron Fox on the Heat. He's young. He's a really good player. He's been averaging 25 plus for at least 3 straight seasons. So, I mean, I would love De'Aaron Fox on the Heat. That's another thing. And also, I just don't think that the Heat are being decisive enough. They need to make a decision and stop being picky. Get what you can get for Jimmy Butler and get him out. That's it. Bottom line. And also, there's something else going on with the Heat as well. I mean, we've just been an absolute mess this year. I never thought that this Jimmy Butler situation would blow up to where it is now. I really didn't. I thought, you know what? The Heat will probably trade him. I knew he didn't want to be there, and then they keep trying to stick him around. I think the Heat really want him there, but he doesn't want to be there. I think that's part of the problem. And Pat Riley is notorious for doing this. I mean, he basically booted D. Wade out of South Beach. He wouldn't pay LeBron James and only paid Chris Bosh. So I think there's a lot of problems with this. And it's a pattern that Pat Riley keeps doing over and over and over again. And I think he's too worried about this three-peat happening for the Chiefs since he has it trademarked. So he needs to be focusing on some other things, okay?
Talk to me, baby. Talk to me nice. I'm from another world, baby, yeah. Broadway paradise. They think I'm way too cold, cause I put my